This week on Lemon's Car Spotting.
Hey everybody, it's Nick and Eric. This is Lemon's Car Spotting. You find weird cars on the street, take pictures of them, put them on the internet. We talk about them.
Let's
get into it. There it is. Yeah. My internet connection is just dandy, I gotta say.
Yeah, doing great. In my neighborhood ish, a Volkswagen Fox. Boy, puzzling. Not the type of car you usually see street parked in Chicago. Not the type of car you actually see anywhere.
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
Yep. Maybe the weirdest Volkswagen sold here.
It's in the conversation. I mean, this and the Quantum.
Yeah.
And, incidentally, they have some similarities with the longitudinal front wheel drive setup. This is the only Brazilian BMW Volkswagen to be sold in the U.S. Is that right? Like the VW of Brazil has their own weird slate of cars. And I think this was the only one that made it to the U.S.
I think that's right. Yeah, it's a weird 4-cylinder engine that wasn't used anywhere else. It's longitudinally mounted. It's a weird platform. They're awkward looking. They might have sold these in Mexico also, I think. Kind of a weird Western Hemisphere only. How far away from the parent brand can we get while designing new things? Thought experiment that was put into reality. And
I want to say, I mean, for sure they sold the 2-door wagon here, which is obviously the coolest Fox that we got. Is there also a 4-door sedan? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
Boy, I used to work at a Volkswagen parts and repair place, and there was a client that had a Fox and it was about to fall apart. Like the wheels were legitimately about to fall off. Like every ball joint was that close from just like letting go. And they didn't want to pay for the work. But then they were like, well, we were going to drive to Santa Cruz today, a distance of an hour and change from the shop. And then we were just like, you're going to die. Like, there's no two ways about it. But then it's like there's a legal, well, we can't prevent these guys from taking their car that they own, but we also don't want to be like, okay, then they died and they just came from the repair shop. So I feel like we had to whip up like a contract, like I am taking this car knowing that I have a 100% chance of dying, signed Volkswagen Fox owner. So I'm sure that would have worked fine in court. I never heard from those guys again. They're probably still off the side of Highway 17 in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It's 20 years later, so it's just, skeletons at the wheel of a Volkswagen Fox with no wheels on it.
Sounds right.
All right. Oh, boy. Back off. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the back off mud flaps go in the back.
Do they not? Yep. Yeah, typically, yeah.
But I'm burying the lead. Obviously, this is a K car that looks like it might have rolled or had a tree fall on it. But it's got some sporty aftermarket wheels on it. Looks like it could have been the kind of car that was used in like a roundy round buzz bomb Friday night race, but it doesn't have a roll cage, but that doesn't necessarily exclude it from circle track racing. Side note on that, just relevant to Lemons. Circle track racing is great. I love spectating circle track racing. Don't bring a circle track car to Lemons. The tech differences, to be diplomatic, are just so significant that you will be better off bringing a car and building a roll cage and safety equipment from scratch to our rule book. So that's my PSA for today.
Yep. This looks like it has had the windshield kicked out of it, possibly all the glass, as though it's either, going to the Friday night Hornet race at to a dirt track, or it's set up for demo derby or being prepared for the small displacement demo derby.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there such a thing? Like, I always, assume that all demo derby is big 70s cars, but maybe we're at the point where there aren't enough of those left, and they have to use Hyundais and K cars and whatnot.
They usually do like a 6-cylinder one, which is great because then you can get all the Pontiac Grand Prix that you can find in the
imagine
Midwest.
the sound of 30 Pontiac Grand Prix at redline in reverse crashing into each other
with open headers.
Man,
that's freedom right there is what that is. This is a good spot though, good K car.
Nice, a frequent flyer on Lemon's Car Spotting, the K car. Oh boy,
yeah.
Wow.
I remember pulling this one specifically because I don't think I've ever seen one of these, which is probably just about the last Coupe deVille that you could buy. This is late 70s after they downsized them, and it is still a gigantic car with about 12 feet of hood. I don't know if I've ever seen a two-door one of these, though.
Really? I feel like they're around. I mean, mostly in California at this point, they've been turned into lowriders, which is fantastic. I recommend it. I mean, now that you mention it, it's probably been a while since I've seen this era Coupe deVille. Well, the sedan deVille of this body continued well into the 80s. I don't know if the Coupe was parallel with it or not. I mean, these they still had Cadillac big blocks. Some of them that did anyway, like a 425 possibly. And I just want to say, and this is, I could be wrong. So the origin of the slab trend in Houston with the swang wheels, the elbows that stick way out, is originally based on a optional Cadillac wheel from this era. There were 83s and 84s, and they were slightly different. I think they might have been made by Krager, but they were factory or dealer installed. You can buy them that way. And they became a real status symbol. And, they were 14x6 or something. They were, by modern standards, tiny, but they had the little, pointed out, with the spinner on the end aesthetic. And that's what begat the giant 3-foot swangas that we have now. Hat tip to Cadillac for starting that out. And then, when the 80 foes come pulling up, the ladies can't resist. Right. I'm not sure if that's what these are, but it's in the same ballpark. Yeah,
I agree. I love the white walls on it, too. Kind of completes the deal, especially with the fading paint or whatever the hell is happening.
Whatever is going on. Yeah. Sweet. All right. Oh, woo, man. Now, if you're going to the gathering of the Juggalos, which if you have this vehicle, you definitely are, you have to find a parking space that it has maximum foot traffic so you can become the king of the Juggalos because, man, with a vehicle like this, what else are you going to be?
Yeah. Some of this is probably actual aftermarket Wings Midwest style body kit, but I really appreciate that there is the handicap shower handle on the rear wing. It had railroad spikes in the roof and the homemade Cavalier body panel on the back of the rear valance that is held in by zip ties. A lot of really good stuff happening here.
I would just love to know the thought process. I mean, it would be hard to create a level of this customization if you were trying to do this ironically. You might not even consider the idea of putting a disabled person shower handle onto the rear aero package. So whoever did this, a true man of genius, as they say.
I will say the one thing that I really like, obviously you can't appreciate it outside of as a whole, but the graphics on the rear quarter, kind of good actually.
Yeah, not bad. Reminds me of something. Can't put my finger on it.
Like Hot Wheels.
Yeah. All right.
Now we're talking my language here. This is the last of Chrysler's B bodies. This is a Charger Daytona which is the same thing as a Cordoba, which is the same thing as a Dodge Magnum. Now, in the most befuddling Chrysler way possible, they sold the Magnum and the Charger date. Actually, I take that back. This is the Charger Daytona that came before the Magnum. So all they did when they made the Magnum was changed the badging. It is literally the same car. I love the look of these. They are horrible cars. I had a Magnum that I was building for Lemons some years ago, and it literally folded in half out of rust, and everything on it was poorly assembled in a kind of frightening way that makes me never want to get in one. But you should build one for Lemons for sure.
Yeah, don't let that be a deterrent. I'm learning something new today. I never knew that there was this generation Cordoba-based Charger Daytona. In fact, when I saw this image, this paint scheme with the two box things, that's from an earlier Charger, right? You could get a Dukes of Hazzard Charger with sort of that treatment, or the one after it, or whatever. So I thought that it was just somebody some dork with a Cordoba thinks he has a 69 Charger, but in fact, no. This is factory, which is just amazing. And Chrysler was really doing some stuff in the Malaysia era.
Sure, we're doing some stuff. Yeah, it does follow a body contour but it's like mostly imaginary. So then the paint accentuates a thing that's barely there. And you can kind of see that in the where the door ends. It doesn't quite follow the body line.
Yep.
But they tried.
You are correct. Well, there you go. And last car for the week. Oh, wow. Look at that. It's a Mercedes. Is this a Ponton Mercedes? Is that the right? Anyway, it's like some kind of super big ass limo version, which, Mercedes has a long history of doing. Some of that history we try to avoid talking about. Incidentally, this was arguably after that. So I'm going to cheat and read the thing. It's a 300 W186 Adenauer. Okay, 51 to 57. God, this is 714 Car Spotting is going real deep dive on the Adenauer knowledge. This is an early version without the front vent windows. It doesn't have a body update. Named after Konrad Adenauer, the first chancellor of West Germany. And what better way to shove it in the face of East Germany than pulling up in this baby?
Yeah, man. My favorite piece of early Mercedes history is that they entered into a deal to be sold at Studebaker dealerships. So there was a Mercedes Studebaker arrangement in the late 50s, never really came to fruition, and then Studebaker went bankrupt before it could actually happen. So Mercedes was suddenly without dealer networks in the United States in the 60s. But it would have been pretty baller to roll up to a Studebaker dealership and buy one of these instead of a Hawk, I will say.
Well, you got to make sure you're going in there at the same time as the guy who's buying the Studebaker lark.
Right.
And be like, oh, yeah, good choice. Well, I'm just going to head out with my Adenauer. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Jeeves is going to drive me out of here with the Adenauer. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. I've got the hooptiest. Boy, that K car is so hoopty, but it's also just sad. That Fox was a pretty nice one, way nicer than the last one I saw, which was those two dudes that are now skeletonized on the side of the Santa Cruz Mountains. Right. I've got to go with the non-ironic, presumably, Wings Midwest Edition Chevy Cavalier. Talk about what you don't want to pull up in. Although, boy, do you? God, go on a Tinder date in this baby. Just pull up and then see what happens.
Yeah. That's certainly a test. Man, I wish it was not parked in the shade so we could get some more detail on the body kit. But
I need to see more about these railroad spikes on the roof. I don't understand it, and I need to know more.
Yeah, it's clearly a mohawk of sorts. But yeah rough. Pretty rough. Lemon's build, I mean, by all means, put some numbers on this thing, bring it to a Lemons race. The Mercedes, spectacular. Bring that to a Lemons race. It'll take pretty much any motor you want to put in it. I'm sure it's gaping maw under the hood. But, I mean, I've said it in previous episodes, there is nothing more Lemons than a giant Malaise era hoopty, especially one that makes absolutely no sense and is a dead end of what was once a classic name badge. Charger, the last Charger is just tailor-made for Lemons. And this one, in particular with the triple brown, is about as Malaise era as anything has ever been. The slot mags is also the last gasp of sportiness that you could try to wring out of this thing.
Well, and let me just say, we're not serial number weenies. If you want to create a Charger Daytona tribute car out of a Cordoba, we would welcome that with open arms as well.
Yeah. These were all big block, or all V8 too. So 360, 400, maybe 318. Doesn't really matter. Put whatever the hell you want in this thing. We will not care.
Viper V10, do it.
Yeah. Oh man, I would love to watch a Viper V10 just rip this car apart over the course of a weekend.
Yeah. Well, I think your mission is clear. But for now, I think that'll do it for Lemon's Car Spotting. Join us next week where we talk about the weird stuff you found on the street.
Yeah. I just imagine the paint guy like looking at the model and then looking at the car and shrugging and painting it that way anyway.
Well, they're just going to have to deal with it.